Good evening, everybody. It is the old wolf again. 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, December 21st, 2021, coming at you live from Rochester, New York, for another episode of The Witch and Wolf Wisdom. Tonight's episode 13. 'Tis the season of Krampus.
Oh no!
Yes.
I've been a good girl.
Well, I have a rationale for the whole Krampus thing. We'll get into it a little bit later. I toned it down a little bit initially. If you remember, my framework on this was a lot more angry.
I mean,
But in fairness,
so.
wanted to dial it back a bit in the spirit. Today is Happy Yule to everybody. And for those of you who don't know, Lady Shiya will explain the Yule.
I will explain the Yule.
Yes, you will.
Are you sure about that?
I'm positive.
Okay.
This is your time in the
yes,
spotlight. Hurry
this
up.
is my time in the spotlight. Today is the solstice. Today was the shortest day of the year, whereas last night was the longest night of the year. And tomorrow the days start getting longer and longer. So today was solstice. So happy Yule. This is where all those crazy ass Christmas traditions come from. Like, you know, Christmas trees and decorating them and Yule logs.
All that pagan shit.
All that pagan shit. And, you know, Odin. You know, the original Father Christmas.
I mean, how does Jesus feel about this?
I mean, he's the one who stole Odin's birthday, so hey.
Yeah, it's interesting how religious dogma and all these elements tend to
well, basically,
mix together
it's
like
the
a goulash.
Yes, it's the rebirth of the sun, S-U-N. And so these crazy, you know, monks and Catholic Church couldn't make people stop celebrating this damn pagan Yule festival solstice thing.
So they co-opted it.
Oh, you know what? Instead of S-U-N, what if we make it the birth of the sun, S-O-N? And yeah, that sounds right. That'll work. I think people will buy that. So, yeah, that's pretty much.
I mean, you know, again, it's not to begrudge anybody how they choose to celebrate Christmas or whatever framework of holiday.
It's a time of new hope and new beginnings, and the world is washed clean.
Yes.
And new rebirth of the sun. Yay.
Embrace it from the positive element, as they say.
I mean, I still sing Silent Night. I just kind of have a different intent in my heart when I'm doing it.
It is all about the almighty perspective. You know, some people celebrate different, you know, I have a lot of friends who celebrate Hanukkah, some friends who don't celebrate in any framework. They believe that the holidays have, and rightfully so, I think, to a lot of degrees, have been compromised or commercialized to a lot of degrees. As a single parent, I found that the pros outweigh the cons. I just really can't get around certain elements. And it's become tradition over a number of years. I just really don't want to deny that magical element just on a principle, if that makes sense.
No, I mean, it's we're pagans aren't assholes. We're happy to share our damn holidays.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That was magnanimous.
So everybody can, you know, have a little fun with the whole Yule thing. So happy Yule, happy Hanukkah, happy Kwanzaa, happy what am I leaving out? Merry Lude, Merry Christmas, Happy Xmas.
Yeah, all of it. Listen, you know,
whatever.
The spirit of love. My brother Fat Ass. Chris, how you doing there, my friend? And Tammy and Melissa, thank you everybody for coming out. So yeah, again, tonight's theme is 'tis the season of Krampus, because I'm gonna head out on some bad people.
Bad little boys and girls get to be put in the bag and beaten with switches.
And as Melissa said, yes, that's why Happy Holidays works so well. I know a lot of people, you know, have kind of taken a little bit of
how dare you wish me happy holidays?
What they get, you know, they get freaked.
Festivus is
and you know, again, I try not to begrudge anybody's context. It's meant in a positive element, so you know, you take it or you leave it. But again, back to the analogy. Yeah, as Peter Griffin would say, I've got a gear to grind. And I'm going to get into it a little bit later more, but I believe it's an element that needs to be discussed more.
You mean you? Get on a soapbox, really?
Yeah, I'm going to get on the fucking soapbox. Now, again, as always, all the opinions and views expressed are mine and mine alone. All of the music performed, composed, is written and composed and performed by me, so that should cover all of the copyright bullshit, blah, blah, blahs.
Yeah. It fucking belongs to him. Get the fuck over it.
Also, heads up warning for those of you who may or may not have children engaged, I will be using foul, profane
Oh my God.
language. Listen, I come from the George Carlin School of Language. I believe that these elements convey a clearer picture.
I think we need the fuck song.
No, I'm not going to do the fuck song yet, but the fuck song may have to come out later. But listen, some things are what they are, and I tend to express them sometimes to the extreme. But I believe that sometimes we need extreme elements.
It's language seasoning.
Well, to wake us the fuck up.
It's seasoning.
Okay? Sometimes, and this is not a blame. This is not to say that it's on anyone. You know, Melissa, it's your fault. Okay?
It's all Melissa's fault.
You're the one to get. It's not like that. You know, we all have our weight to carry to different degrees. But here's the simple truth: until elements, especially bad elements, come creeping directly on our back door, we tend to be a little bit apathetic of them. AKA, you know, if it's affecting somebody, 10,000 miles away in a different country, we feel bad, but it doesn't have the same impact when it hits close to home. And this particular framework hit very close to home.
Mm-hmm. One of our own.
Yes, definitely one of our own. And I'm going to be talking a lot tonight about some of the aspects that are tied into it. This podcast tonight is going to be dedicated to him. And he's my friend, DJ. Brother DJ, when you get to listen to this, my friend, please I apologize right off the bat for the bad language. Your mom's going to kick my ass, but you get to laugh. Okay, it's on me. I'm taking one for the team tonight. So you can tell your mom it's my fault. Okay?
Don't go singing the fuck song.
As your shirt says, I had a fucking mood.
Mood.
Big fucking mood. But here it is. And I have permission from DJ's mother, okay, and she is also a friend of ours.
Yeah, many of you guys know her.
And her name is Stephanie, okay. So here it is in a nutshell, okay. I have a lot of friends. A lot of you have a lot of friends with children who have challenges. Some of them have learning disabilities. Some of them have different elements of things for different reasons. And I'm not going to go into all the specific details because I don't think that's relevant in the analogy. What is relevant is just like every other kid his age. DJ is a good kid, I believe. Okay, I've interacted with him. I've spoken with him. He has a good heart. He has a good mind. But he has some issues hearing, and he has some elements that make it a little bit more difficult for him to process things that are going on around him. And a lot of kids have this particular issue for a variety, again, of different reasons. They might have autism on different spectrums. They may have encountered certain elements of trauma. Again, there's a wide spectrum of reasons why. But here it is. DJ has been trying, and his mother has been working very hard for him to be acclimated in a quote-unquote normal school aspect. And what that means is him trying to go to school and interact with everybody else like every other normal kid. However,
quote-unquote normal.
Quote-unquote normal. And the monkey makes a great point. Quote-unquote normal. But here it is. In this process of DJ trying to adapt and trying to do the things that he can to learn and to grow in this process, he has been the target of a lot of bullying because of some of the challenges that he faces. And this bullying has reached a point, unfortunately, that my friend DJ, he had a bit of a moment. And that moment translated into him either wanting to hurt himself or theoretically hurt somebody else. And he was honest about it. He vocalized it to his mother, and they immediately sought help, and they're dealing with it right now. But the problem here is and this is being talked about in different areas to different degrees here and there, but bullying now and the associated elements have been getting worse. I encountered them as a child. My son encountered them as a child. I think, unfortunately, all of us have encountered it. Shiya's encountered it. We've all encountered it to different degrees as children, and we encounter it to different degrees as adults. It is one of the uglier human dynamics. As adults, we're a little bit better prepared, I think, to be able to handle it. However, for children, it is a very dangerous double-edged sword, because not only do they not have the experience and the tools to process it, but by that very aspect, it tends to polarize and it tends to warp certain elements for them. And again, in the simple context of how we feel, especially when we feel cut off, when we feel less than, when we're teased or bullied, as the case may be, a lot of times we don't feel there are options. And I think we can all agree that the other side of the coin has been horrific. Again, I'm not going to give weight or exposure to the horrible people that have done horrible things and all these different school shootings and, you know, stuff like that. But I want to talk about a kid who didn't go out there. He didn't go shoot anybody, okay? He didn't hurt himself. He actually took the hard step in being honest and saying, hey, this is how I feel. I don't know what to do, okay? And that's a common element, not only again for children, but for adults. The numbers are ridiculous, and I'm going to talk about that again through the evening in the simple hope that, you know, knowledge is power. The more we talk about things, the more that we make it a point, the better chance we have at shifting those dynamics. Most of these elements are learned behaviors, and especially when we compare it up against other elements that are going on in the world around us, it's not hard to connect the dots. Now again, I understand we're not all going to agree. I understand there is a context to be made in certain scenarios where people have to learn the harsh lessons. But again, as a man and as a parent, I truly do not believe that children should have to be exposed to these elements until they've at least had a framework of time to be able to prepare themselves. It's the same analogy why we don't let adults fuck little children, because they're not ready, they're not capable. I know that's a harsh analogy, but we do have boundary lines that we draw to protect our children. It is the lesser of the two evils that I talk about. And it's hard. Yeah, actually, you know, and he is a lot smarter and braver than, you know, some of the other ones that have done some horrendous elements. But even still, we have to, as the adults, regardless if we're parents or not, we have to have these conversations. We have to be cognitive of these elements that are going around us, because they play out in so many different ways. They play out in the malls and the stores. They play out in the playgrounds. They play out online. Now we have a whole new medium with the internet and everything that creates a whole nother layer of elements, but it's also, I think, reflective and not unlike what we've seen in the Me Too movement, that we have to call out these behaviors. And that doesn't mean that, you know, we take children and we hang them out to dry because they acted stupid. We need to go back to the source. Why are these children acting this way? What is the dynamic that's coming from the other end? Because again, this is not normal per se behavior. Sure, there's going to be a little bit of that, but most of the deeper, more destructive elements, and we know this from, you know, many years of studies, are from elements of dysfunctionality in the home. So, you know, you have this crossover effect that you could be doing everything right. You know, Steph's doing everything she can to raise her kids correctly, do the right thing and stuff, and because of someone else's dysfunction carrying over onto their kid and then bringing it to school to now carry over and target her son, it is a big shit sandwich. And the carryover is real. And again, you know, I went through it as a young person. You know, when I was young in the time period, it was not fashionable, you know, for a younger man to have long hair. I kind of came off the tail end of the 60s where the hippies weren't cool anymore. So, you know, I struggled with those particular elements. Monkey, I know you struggled with, you know, some elements when you were growing up.
Oh yeah, when I had long hair, I used to get picked on. Whenever I used to go swimming, I used to have people think I was a girl because I had the hair long, and it would get, you know, sleek and straight and down my back. And then, you know, there's a whole bunch of other things you touched before about the internet and what social media does and how it's affected people. And I think as much good as you can make of social media, it has done an extraordinary amount of harm. And there's a study that I want to reference here that was done in the year 2000. And the study shows that normal children in that day, so year 2000, when I was, 7 years old?
Yep.
Children in middle school and high school had the same anxiety levels as child psychiatric patients in the 1950s.
My goodness.
Now, if that doesn't say something about at least one of two things: one, the internet and the beginnings of social media and stuff, and two, the state of our education system as a whole, because I know I had a couple of teachers that did not want to be teachers or did not like children and had no business being a teacher, had no business furthering the education of the next generation, especially when they did not care about it.
We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah.
And it is, unfortunately, one of the variables in play. We all take it for granted, I think, as parents, that, or we want to believe, we send our children to school and, you know, they're going to learn, they're going to be safe, they're going to be encouraged.
I think school is a major stress point for a lot of people, because school stresses, you know, three big things in my mind. The first of which is all of the goddamn standardized testing and all of the quote unquote good that it does. That it's just a stress point for people that are either not good test takers or B, can't memorize an ass ton of useless information they'll never use again in their life. Or, you know, you run into the idea of social cliques. Everyone's gone through that.
Yeah.
You know, you find people that you connect with, or you don't, unfortunately, sometimes.
Well, I think a lot of that is also reflective of a lot of the conditioning modules that I like to refer to, the constructs about we're supposed to look a particular way, you're supposed to dress a particular way, you're supposed to act a particular way, you're supposed to eat this, you're not supposed to, you know, I mean, some of it is viable, but so much of it is superficial that most, and I think the greater majority, either can never actually fit into that, or they spend all of their time and energy fighting that perception. And as Sky says, yeah, you know, the verbal abuse and harassment and toxic behavior, you know, it causes physical responses, you know what I mean? It is a real thing. You know, negative energy, just like radiation, is going to have a cause and effect.
Especially when you were saying before, you don't have the tools to manage it.
And especially if you don't understand it for what it is. If you live on a toxic dump site and you don't realize that there's radioactive rods buried, you know, 50 feet underneath you, you'll spend your whole life wondering why you're sick. Now, in this analogy, we at least have a better context. We can say, okay, hey, listen, you know, this is going on. We have elements of abuse that are going on at very young ages in frameworks of places where there really should not be a context for it. There shouldn't, you know, be happening. Now, there are a lot of different, you know, obvious reasons, rationales, perspectives. There's no simple answers. But I wanted to take it from, and especially for him, with what he's going through, to remind him, using this format, using the voice I have, that we're all connected. We've all gone through, to some degree or another. Ash says, you know, being a fat girl in Seattle with poodle bangs was not fun. I feel you, hon. I feel you. And this is, again, the common denominator that a lot of us share, having gone through these types of traumas. And I think in the purest element of love and support, I wanted to remind him and his mother that, hey, you're not in this alone. You know what I mean? You don't have to be ashamed or feel less than because somebody else, for whatever their issues, decided to take it out on you. But also in the same aspect, to remind him and everybody else that exactly as he did, if an 11-year-old kid can make the connection to vocalize it, use that as an example. We don't have to act on those initial feelings. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it sucks. But that's what, in many times, defines the future. And he made that cognitive choice. It's still painful for him. It's still painful for his family and his mother and everything. But there's hope in that aspect that he didn't want to. And I mean, again, we see it all the time. We hear about it in the news, in the papers, and media. This kid, kills himself because of bullying, this person kills himself, or they go and they kill other people because they were bullied, because they were harassed, because they were isolated and made to feel less than. So that dynamic...
It's frustrating. You feel helpless.
It does, because the rest of us are collateral damage in many ways. Our children, and in particular, in Stephanie's case, her son, DJ, is collateral damage in some other child's element for whatever reason they are doing the bullying. So again, I wanted tonight to be that, hey brother, you're not alone, man. So again, in that aspect, my brother DJ, we love you. We're going to talk about this on again, off again all night, but the first track that I'm going to cut to for everybody, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the contest going on Shiya's lives and updates and stuff like that. But this track is a rough track. It is literally a first run through on one of the new tracks Greg and myself and the monkey are working on. It is entitled Just Like You. This version will definitely shift and change in the process of us changing some of the dynamics of the lyrics, and then obviously in the polishing, timing elements as to happens with all music. But this is literally, as they say, a first one. It is the original concept on the song.
It's a rough draft.
It's a rough draft, but it's a functional rough draft.
It's got some polishing.
It's the birth of a song.
It is the first version of the song. Again, it's called Just Like You, and brother DJ, this song is dedicated to you, my brother.
Welcome to the song making process.
Yes, welcome to the song making process. So we're gonna pop that, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. So yeah, that was the first run on Just Like You. Definitely a deeper, harder driving track. Greg and I wanted to explore, some of the older elements of the late rock, early metal elements that he and I experienced as teenagers. Heavy influences from bands like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin, Rainbow, Deep Purple, and others. So yeah, and the element that was in it, at least for me, and I've talked to other people about this, and it was one of the inspirations, is that we struggle to relate. We struggle to connect. We constantly are dancing around the fringes of perception and illusion. Do you like me? Am I cool? Do I look like you need me to look? Do I talk the way that you need me to talk? Do I give you whatever it is so that way I can be accepted and I can feel better about myself? It's a constant, dance around. And not only like a dog chasing its tail, it's usually, a cyclic nightmare with, no end in sight.
Just usually ending in confusion.
Yes, ending in confusion. That's a good one. So I wanted to kind of, again, approach it not unlike some of the other tracks that Shiya and I and Monkey and others in our circle have been working on, to express elements that are, a little bit beyond just like, hey, you're sexy, I love you, can I buy you a drink, can we fall in love and get married? Or, the deeper, hey, I want to fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, hey, I want to fuck you, fuck. Well, that was my variation on the fuck song for Shiya.
All right.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we have a lot of fucks to give.
We have a lot of fucks.
Yes, and that's how it rolls. But
The fucks flow
some
freely.
things are deeper. The elements, the track Demons reflects, for me, a lot of the dogma that was shoveled my way as a child to get me to fall in line. Don't eat meat on Friday. You know what I mean? If you touch yourself, God will be watching and he will make you blind. All these...
You'll grow hair in funny places.
All
We're
kinds.
gonna do that anyway.
And, eternal damnation, hellfire, like, boiling forever in a sea of madness.
Or you'll be burned at the stake.
Or, yeah, just so many,
She's a witch! Burn her!
and for a child, and let's call it for what it is. It is the worst attempt at conditioning. You are basically purposely traumatizing a child, threatening them with all kinds of horror to get them to act in a particular way.
Rather
Don't do
than
this,
just
do that.
communicating what you need, what they need. It's ridiculous.
Now, I understand about basic concepts. You want to teach your children, it's not okay. It's acceptable to go outside and just kill random people, or to take whatever you want that isn't yours, or to fuck your neighbor's wife. And, I can get behind those
you
tenets.
want to have a concept of morality.
But there has to be a bit of a
See,
balance.
that's where I don't think religion is a horrible thing to teach to some degree.
To some degrees, I agree.
Teach but not enforce.
Yes.
And to teach the why of the morality behind some of its religious
Yes.
precepts. Because the religion was in many cases a way to control the populace when you didn't have elements like police forces.
Oh yeah, well, don't
everywhere.
get me started on how the church used it to actually control populaces.
Ooh.
Let's get you started on that.
Yeah, no,
Please,
we're
by all means.
we're actually gonna save that for another content. No, we're gonna get through the things that we have to. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about, ta-da! Yes, and we're trying to get it to go, but it doesn't want to go, and there it goes. Yes, there it is, the contest.
Yay!
Yes, we have the December trivia scavenger hunt, which has been running through the month.
That
Pretty
has been so
simple.
much fun.
All you have to do is be a subscriber to the YouTube channel. We do weekly main contests, and we have weekly prizes, which is a full spirit insight from either Shiya or myself. And through that process to the end, based on the points, we have a grand prize of a custom hooded sweatshirt done by Tattoo Tony Rodriguez, and a 30-minute private reading from either myself or Shiya. And the second place will be a 30-minute private reading from either myself or Shiya. pretty simple. We've been doing trivia all throughout the month, giving away points for different things. And as it stands right now, we're just going to pop this up. Da-da-da-da-da-da. As it stands right now, Michelle Myers is in first place with 25 points.
She really wants that fucking hoodie.
She listen, whenever she comes out here, she's like, I'm getting that fucking hoodie. She wants it. Everybody knows it, so she's the girl to beat.
Oh my.
Ash is in second place with 18. She was the week 2 winner. We got Monica Maples in third with 10, and Tamara and Anisha tied for fourth place respectively with 8 points. Anisha was the week 3 winner, so she can get that full insight from Shiya or myself at any one of the lives, either tomorrow night. Now, there will not be a Friday night live this week, obviously being Christmas Eve. We will be spending time as a family.
Yeah.
So I think, Shiya, you were planning on maybe making an appearance Sunday?
Yes.
So yes, we will be checking out for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day to spend time again as a family and celebrate in our own way. But
I
yes,
actually kind of like these folks around here.
yes, we had a blast today. We actually we hit the mall. Listen, the 3 of us went to the mall, did everything we had to do, and got the fuck out of there in less than an hour.
Without hardly touching a dart.
We didn't really want to go there, but there were just certain things that had to be done. Just in the spirit of the holidays, I refuse to live in fear, don't get me wrong. We went in with masks, we did our part, but man, let me tell you, this was one efficient family. I was so proud. I mean, we got in there, we split up, boom, boom, boom. Everybody did their shit, bang, met up at the same place. We were like, we got some selfies, peace the fuck out, bang, we were gone.
Yeah, we did our selfies outdoors.
That was it. We were just like, boom, boom.
Well, luckily they had a nice giant Christmas
Well, they had a
tree.
nice giant
Big
Christmas
giant
tree.
tree.
So yes, these are the points as it stands. Now again, as mentioned, the contest is running through the rest of the month.
Yes.
Okay. Tonight, for 5 points, and this question, unlike the Wednesday night questions, can be answered in the chat here. So simply put, the first person who types in the correct answer in the chat gets 5 points. Okay. These little ones that I do are nice and easy, so anybody who wants to get in on the contest, here's your shot at 5 points tonight. And your hint is...
And I just want to say, to be fair, we are streaming on 3 different platforms. We will see the first person to post, even if it's not on your platform.
Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you for that little technical update, Monkey.
Yes.
I appreciate that.
Well,
See,
he's
look,
our
a Monkey's
techno
looking out.
monkey.
Monkey's like he wants the underdog to win.
He's our techno
Well,
monkey.
I'm just looking out. That way nobody else feels cheated either.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. But here it is. Here's your clue for tonight. You sit there mesmerized by the depth of her eyes.
Monkey knows it. I saw the light of recognition
Yeah,
in his eyes.
Monkey might know it.
Hi, Shauna. I see you, girl.
So, yes, there is your clue tonight. The first person with the correct answer gets 5 points to the contest. You sit there mesmerized by the depth of her eyes. So, yeah, the contest is the last one. And I mean, again, whatever this is worth, not everybody knows some of the things that we're into. And, it probably helps to talk about Tony Rodriguez. Tony Rodriguez is a good friend of ours. He's family. He's brother to myself, to my monkey. Ash.
Ash, get
Ash. Yep.
All right,
Ash nailed it.
Well, I think that just might move her up. How many points? That was 5 points.
That's 5
Yeah.
points. Ash is climbing back in there, yeah.
For Gryffindor.
And for those of you who don't know,
Ash, what house
that
are
was
you?
an iconic. Well, you know what? I can't do it as an extra bonus thing because I know Ash knows, and she's just going to steal more points. It was an iconic track from a band called Buffalo Springfield. Buffalo Springfield was the formation of musicians before Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. It had Stephen Stills in the band. It had Neil Young in the band, and for a little point, Linda Ronstadt was a background singer
No shit,
in the
really?
band. So
I
they
didn't know that.
they were one of the earlier West Coast folk rock bands that came onto the scene. And yes, that line was from Bluebird. So congratulations, Ash, for another 5 points.
And
So-
actually, another piece of trivia is that when we were first dating, you told me that Bluebird was one of the songs that reminded you of me.
Yes, it definitely was. That was actually one of the conversations that we did have when
Yep.
we first started
So a little
interacting.
personal kind of thing.
It's a
Yeah.
favorite of mine. It's a beautiful track. You know, again, I can't play it out here on the podcast for obvious reasons with copyright and such, but I would humbly, recommend, if you're a fan of music and you want to explore some different genre elements, it's a great blast from the past, as I say. But
Try
again,
and look for the extended version. It's on YouTube.
yes, the extended version of that song, the original version, is on YouTube.
Really?
But as mentioned, Tattoo Tony is the founder, runs the Under My Skin tattoo shop in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. He is a world-renowned tattoo artist. He also runs the Papo Sticker Company, which basically can design any number of things from hats to sweatshirts to bumper stickers to anything that you could imagine that can be created graphically. And he's also the founder and remaining original member of the band Broken Paths. Great bunch of guys, love them. But up on the screen here, you can there are little links to all of them. If you're in central New Jersey and you want a tattoo, he's the guy to talk to. You want to design a custom bumper sticker or something for your business or
Tony
for your kids.
is a phenomenal artist. No matter what you're looking for, chances are he can get it for you or make it for you.
Yes.
And the rest of his crew, he gets a talented bunch surrounding
Listen,
him too.
he is a no-nonsense kind of guy. He's also a single father. He also started the Under My Skin for Life Foundation, which is the charity organization that myself and my son, the monkey, belong to and have been members for a number of years. They do a lot of work for kids with autism, homeless vets, and other elements within the community. So, yes, definitely check him out. Support is always welcomed and appreciated, but he will be doing the custom sweatshirt. That will be the grand prize, part of the grand prize for the contest.
He's gonna kick some ass.
And again, as always, Shiya and I have a lot of different services. We do readings on the lives. We do private counseling, custom music, spell casting. Shiya has this incredible group, and I mean incredible group, and I can't press it enough. The Mentorship Circle, which has really been kind of really expanding nicely lately. All kinds of elements from Reiki, spell casting, Tara, runes, dream elements,
We teach it. We do live classes. We do
live
discussions.
workshops, an interactive community that
Very.
really, works, strength in numbers.
If you need to learn it, we'll figure it out. Or I know I've got some experience in it.
And it
Or
also,
somebody there's got
gives
some
you
experience
discounts
in it.
off readings on all, the different lives and, everything like that. Some of the things too, you have the private video readings that
Oh,
you
yeah,
now
that's
do.
a new thing. Yeah, if you don't have a question that you can ask.
Yeah,
on
and
the
Shauna,
live,
the live workshops and stuff, Shiya will always post. They'll go up well in advance. Obviously, with Christmas, the holidays.
well, we just had one last Thursday.
Yeah, she had one last Thursday, so there'll be
So
another
our next
one.
one will be in January.
She'll be structuring and putting that up soon. So yeah, it hasn't actually gone out yet, but it will be.
Yep.
And
Like
that's
to start
beautiful,
out the new year
and
with
that's
a bit
one
of
of
a
the
bang.
great things is that we all share stuff. Sky brings stuff. I've seen Sky, talking about a lot of different things. Ash, Shauna, whole lot of other people that interact within the community for a variety of different things. A lot of them are active, also professionally, like Ashley Hart and others.
Our January
Your friend
workshop,
Melanie.
by the way, is going to be on the mystical, magical side of shadow work.
Ooh. Well, we'll have to definitely get you to talk more about that. But yeah, those are a lot of the elements that we have going on. So again, back to what we were talking about earlier. These things, and again, we visualize them, we look at them from a kind of a sideways context. But when they come close to home, we become emotionally invested. And, I started taking a deeper look at some of the things, and it's not pretty. You know what I mean? It is not pretty at all. I'm going to start with this one. And this one was released through a compilation through a couple different education groups and governmental groups, so that way it was a non-partisan project, aka it's not coming out of somebody's personalized agenda because they want you to see. These are just simple statistics.
These are factual numbers.
Yes, these are real numbers. Every 7 minutes a child is bullied. Now again, these numbers are conservative. These are just based off the numbers that we're able to pull. And if you talk to anybody from a scientific basis, that means there's a pretty sizable chunk that is not accounted for. And again, think about it in its simplest terms.
All you have to do is think back to your own time.
Right, for every one that you know about.
And how many of your friends or people did you know that had problems that never said anything about it? It's that simple when you think about it. Now, when you think about that number, you can kind of add that, and then you're one of how many people that were taking a part of this study. Just multiply it. You'll start to figure out the margin of error that is supposedly there. It's huge.
It is huge. Okay, 43%. Okay, 43% fear harassment in the bathroom. When I saw that number,
That's horrifying.
It is insane in its baseline that people are scared to go in the bathroom. Kids are afraid to take a shit. There's something wrong there. All comedy aside, 77% of students are bullied mentally, verbally, and physically. Cyberbullying statistics are rapidly approaching similar numbers. And this was done a couple of years ago, so...
I think cyberbullying is more of an issue now than it ever has been. Because here's the thing about cyberbullying, and I'm sure a number of you might know this issue in your own way. Doesn't necessarily have anything to do with school, because you can get cyber stalked. You can get somebody that has your phone number, your email, that can consistently change their own and harass you. Well, that's the same thing with social media. They just make multiple accounts. They start to just consistently harass you, no matter how many accounts you block, no matter how many times you try and put an end to it. It doesn't stop. You have to literally disappear. All of a sudden, you can't use social media anymore. That's your only quote-unquote safe route.
And we know adults that have gone through this context that unfortunately the internet has become weaponized for people to do all kinds of crazy horrendous stuff. But again, in this simple context, even removing that dynamic, which don't get me wrong, I agree is an incredibly powerful dynamic, this is just within the elements of our school systems. 1 out of 4 students will be abused by another youth. 25%. Now again, I use humor and sarcasm to deflect some of the other elements that just make me fucking insane with, like, how do we not get it? But obviously we haven't been able to get it as a collective.
I think I'll be the one to say it if you don't mind. I think it comes down to shit parenting.
Well, the monkey said it, I didn't, but I tend to have to agree. There's a lot of shit parenting.
But in respect, sometimes it's not always the one parent's fault. Sometimes it's dysfunction in the family that's
It's generational sometimes.
gone unaddressed.
Right.
Sometimes it's problems with the parents that they don't realize are problems until the youth brings it up, and they may never bring it up.
You're right. And that translates into this child now going into school and lashing out, aka bullying, on the innocent child or the convenient target, the weaker model, the kid that stands out, that's different for whatever reason. And again, 25%, 1 out of 4. Now again, if you think about this, and again, we'll do a George Carlin aspect. If 1 out of 4 people were going to wake up sometime in the next 5 years and their eyes and their ears and their nose and their tongue would fall off their body, you could bet your fucking ass we would gather all of our resources and power and figure that shit out so that way it wouldn't happen. Okay? Because here's the other flip side, the cause and effect now. Now you have these children, okay, now who are being impacted. They're being traumatized. Let's call it for what it is. And that trauma now is going to translate back into the rest of us in mass shootings, in schools, in malls, in other dysfunctional elements now that translate into abusive relationships, that translates into addiction, that translates into all these other things that again carry over, and eventually, to some degree or another, we all have to contend with, directly or indirectly. Say it however you want. If you're not dealing with the shit right in your face, you're dealing with it in some other context, in your taxes for your community, in any number of elements that go on in our everyday life. So, common sense would say, hey, if we see where the dynamic is beginning, this should be, by default again, where we focus our efforts, where we focus our energy to stop some of this insanity, this dysfunction. Okay? Now again, there's a whole lot of things to be scared and to be freaked out about. There's a whole lot of things that are fucked up and going wrong. You have kids blowing away each other in schools. You've got debates about who brings guns into school, who doesn't. You've got everybody freaking out about so-called critical race theory. But this should be something that should transcend politics or ideologies and should simply be, hey, we have to stop these abusive elements for whatever the reasons, okay? And again, I'm not pointing fingers and saying your kid is worse or this. But when my friend DJ is driven to a point that he feels that the only options left to him because of how it makes him feel, and again, this is not shit that he's just imagining, okay? I know the elements through his mother that, you know, because he's different, because he's special, okay, he gets picked on, okay? He gets abused, he gets bullied, okay? And because of that, he gets it. He absorbs it like we all do. Okay? But he's a child, unfortunately. And for all of his heart and everything else, he still managed to say, hey, this is how I feel. I don't, you know. And again, you know, most adults can't even do that. He didn't just act out. He didn't go do something horrible. But it's still affecting him, and it's affecting his family, and by default it carries over onto all of us at some point along the way. We cannot, and again, I use the same analogy within the Me Too movement, we cannot allow this type of stuff to continue on. The damage is too much. There's too great of a price for simply being fucking apathetic about what's going on. And if that means, you know, some parents have to take fucking responsibility for their children, so that way DJ and others like him can just go to school for what they want. They want to learn, they want to interact, they want to grow, they want to be better people. So what do? Where do we draw the line? You know, again, it's a shit sandwich. But some things, again, and, you know, Shiya and I joke around and use the analogy, a duck is a duck. There is no justification. There is no dance around, hey, no. Okay, it should not be tolerated. It should be called out for what it is, and it needs to be
handled appropriately.
Handled appropriately. Thank you very much. Now, again, I don't pretend to have all the answers, okay? I do know, though, again, that by talking about it, by making ourselves aware, and even in myself, in learning some of the elements, and again, some of these elements are not pretty, okay? And I'm going to give you some of those elements of the not pretty. This is the U.S. suicide rate in kids 10 to 24 years old as of a couple years ago. And you can see from 2000, in 8 years, that number has jumped massively. Okay? Numbers don't lie, people. I don't give a shit about anybody's spin.
I just want to point out that those numbers aren't just like 9.2 or 10.7. That is per 100K people.
Right.
So there's, what, 6 billion people on the planet?
Well, this is U.S. suicide rates. So I think.
So, well, there's a lot of people in the U.S.
I think right now, I think we have somewhere like 1.3 billion. But again, here, it's too many. It's too many. Look, these numbers are insane. You know, we're freaking out about COVID, and rightfully so. We're freaking out about cancer, and rightfully so. We talk about addiction. We talk about all these elements, but this is ridiculous. All right, these are children killing themselves.
It's completely unavoidable
because they don't feel they have any other option. So yeah, according to the monkey, you know, little over 329 million. So you take now almost 11%, and I'm sure that, you know, everything that I've seen, and they haven't done a correlative element, but those numbers have continued to gone up.
Yes.
So we're talking somewhere in around the range of,
Hold on.
you know.
Monkey's going to get us accurate numbers. He's our techno monkey.
It's insane.
Really?
That's just way too many. Way too many.
In 2018.
Yeah, 6,000, almost 7,000 suicides.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Within children. You know, and granted, you know, you're going into the 24-year range, so yeah, you can make a case. All right, well, you know, maybe, but you know, there's some other elements of numbers here.
I tried.
This was an actual deeper study that they did in the UK, and this actually has some newer data, and you can see some of these elements: depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, 33%.
I just want to point something out I see in the comments right here, Ash. I 100% agree with you. They do need to allow teachers to help stop it. Obviously not talking about physical discipline. That's never helped, nor will it really help. But the fear of dressing down a student for their behavior is definitely an idea of... I mean, you may call it public shaming to some degree, but...
It is the lesser of two evils, I think, in my opinion.
You need to teach somebody a lesson when they've made a mistake, even if that means it's a little embarrassing. You know what I mean?
Well, sometimes that is the only way that we live. As a, you know, we don't learn, unfortunately, unless, you know, sometimes we have to be forced in
But
that.
this also goes back to my other point. When you're talking about the education system and allowing teachers to do something like this, the teachers need to still give a shit.
Yes.
The teachers need to be involved with all of their students to such a degree that they need to, you know, be able to identify that not only is somebody having issues, but maybe somebody else is for other reasons. Like they should be able to see the bully
but that's
as
also,
a victim too.
And Steph has a great point. We need to get back to some of the core elements. Because I agree, it isn't just on the child, because just as much as DJ as a child is a victim, the bullier is a child as well too, and more times than not, as she says, and that's right, they're hurting just as bad, if not worse. I mean, again, has suicidal thoughts, 33%. Self-harmed, 27%.
Honestly, growing up, the amount of my friends that went through self-harm, it feels like it should be a lot.
Well, it probably is, because
larger.
this was out of a little over 7,000 responders in this particular study. And that's only of the people that were comfortable enough to be honest. Yeah. So you know that the numbers are going to be skewed. So, again, these are insane numbers. I mean, insane numbers. And again, joke all you want about it. I've had people make that, well, you know, it's a tough world, Darwin's theory, you know, survival of the fittest. Bullshit.
Our children
It's not how it works.
Our
okay?
children should be protected.
There's no justification. There's no excuse.
If you look in the animal kingdom, most species of animals protect their young. They teach them.
Exactly.
They don't just drop them off on their own. We're not birds.
No.
And you know, some.
I hate the analogy of kicking a bird out of the nest. Yeah, sure, it needs to learn to fly, but
then it falls to death and it gets eaten by a predator.
Right.
I love the analogy of the eagle. The mama eagle carries the baby up on its back, drops down, gives the baby a chance to fly. If it can't fly, it comes back up, lifts it back up, and keeps doing it again and again until the baby gets a hang of it.
I didn't
I
know
mean,
that. That's beautiful.
There are a lot of different analogies in nature, but in its simplest form, it should be about a simple element of what is acceptable and what is not. Nobody should have to be victimized, especially within the context of children.
No.
And again, you're right. You can't have unlimited power because a lot of these teachers, I wouldn't trust to make a fucking peanut butter sandwich, let alone deal with children. So, yeah, we got a lot of deep layers. But again, to get back to the core element, a lot of this was, and I want it to be, again, I didn't want it to just be on the negative aspect. It is about my brother DJ, and that he's not alone in this context. This is something we all experience. It's something we've all had to contend with. And within that core philosophy that I drive and Shiya, and I know Monkey drives, and a lot of you drive, strength in numbers.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? That we can together, in even the basic of concepts of support within energy and love and understanding and communication, that we can have an honest conversation. And I said earlier, Steph, if DJ watches this, I apologize for all the fucks in this. You can blame me. Okay? I know you're a good mom and stuff like that, so I'm the fuck bomb king.
Well, if nothing
But
else,
it's said in love.
if nothing else, I do want to add something before I leave here. I just want to say that, DJ, your decision is probably one of the wisest decisions you could have come to. Despite your age, you did something not most people would be able to do.
Yeah.
And I also want to point out one of my favorite quotes right now that lines up pretty well. It's from one of my favorite movies with Robin Williams, Bicentennial Man. It's the imperfections of humanity in which make us perfect. There is no such thing as true perfection, and to seek it is faulty. It is foolhardy. It doesn't exist. You should stop.
Great. That's beautiful words.
And in the spirit of Yule, be thankful for what you have and who you have.
Yeah.
Have a great night and a happy Yule, everyone.
Thank you, Monkey, for coming through.
Thank you,
So the monkey
Monkey.
dips out. He's out. He's escaping. I don't know. He's gonna go raise some Krampus havoc. So yes. So in the spirit of Krampus, you know what I mean. There's definitely some bad kids out there that need a visit. I'm just saying. I'm going to be honest, when I first heard about this, and Shiya will tell you, I was a pissed off wolf. I was so
livid.
unhappy. Because I know him. Listen, I've
you were
interacted with
livid.
him. He's a great kid. And as a parent, I felt the same way when my son went through this. All right? It drove me batshit. Because I knew intellectually, and even from my heart, that I can't just act like an asshole. I can't just go down there and be the bigger bully. You know what I mean? I had to lead by example, so I had to talk him through it. I had to be more, I guess you could say, Obi-Wan Kenobi-ish in the element that, yes, it sucks. It doesn't make it right, but, taking the high ground, being the better person. And I was lucky. I was blessed that it never got to such a degree that he had to experience, unfortunately, what DJ hit, which was basically an impasse. DJ hit a bottom where obviously he has taken so much abuse in this context. And say what you will, we all have that line, and whose line is better or what, there is no comparison, and there is no, he hit his line, and it was, I'm sure, incredibly difficult for him to have to vocalize that. I'm also a little bit hesitant. I'm always afraid because I don't trust the system. I don't trust how, unfortunately, things get kind of, packaged and whitewashed and streamlined when it comes into our children. We don't look at them as individuals. We don't go beyond the basic elements of things. We tend to just either, want to lock them up or throw drugs. And I know that's not the case with Steph here and stuff like that. So this is not a comparison into her situation. But it is, for me as a parent, one of my fears and one of my distrusts, having seen elements, not only through my own personal experiences, but through the experience of others that I've known through the years and their children and struggling within the system. You know, they want to throw people into these molded elements and say, okay, here's your psychiatrist, therapist, and, you know, here is the book, you know. And most of these kids, they don't want to hear this fucking shit. It doesn't connect with them. They don't trust. Okay? They don't understand it. So how the fuck are they supposed to figure it out? They don't. So they become more isolated and more withdrawn. And again, we keep spinning around in the same paradox. Now, it's not to say that it's always that way, because there are good doctors. There are good people in the system. But just like in everything else in life, there's just a lot of fucking assholes and sycophants and people who really shouldn't be there in the first place. Their uncle, you know, blew the governor and somehow got a cushy job working in, you know, the social system. Believe me, that shit really does happen, as crazy as it sounds. Now, again, I'm not saying that that's the case here. I only use it in creative license elements to reflect upon, you know, some of the things that, you know, rattled around me. That was one of my fears, you know, when I initially heard, you know, what was going on, was that he was going to get swallowed up into the fucking system. That they were going to take one look at this, and because of all the other bullshit that's gone on with these kids, you know, shooting up schools and stuff like that, that they were just going to throw them in a box and say, yeah, no, just fuck it. You know what I mean?
Stephanie is such a good mama bear, though. She will not allow that to
happen.
She
ain't alone.
Yeah.
Listen, you know, in that element, I do not believe that that is, you know, appropriate for any child, you know, short of an absolute complete breakdown. And again, only within a very limited framework.
Yeah.
Okay. As, you know, Steph said, and I think very aptly, they are victims within their own elements too. Okay.
Yeah.
Children, you know, this is learned behavior. This is, again, conditioned elements from experience, trauma, whatever the dynamic is. Okay, kids don't jump out of the womb reciting Mein Kampf. Somebody teaches them how to be a fucking Nazi.
Well, it's like there was one situation when I was growing up where a group of girls who had had a sleepover came over and vandalized our house. My mom found out about who it was and went and confronted them and had to call the other mom that was like supposed to be supervising these kids back from her country club, and she was very upset that she had to come back from her country club to deal with her unruly child and her friends. And that just shows that in some ways that was a cry for help on the point of my bullier and her friends, that they were trying to get the attention because mom could give a shit. She was off doing her own thing.
Yeah, listen, there are a lot of different dynamics. I know when I was younger, my mother hit a point, because she had 5 of us, and she hit a point after the 60s where she realized the whole free love hippie thing was not really going to fly. And I think she had a little bit of resentment and a little bit of anger, especially going through her own elements of abuse with my father and just the world in general. So when it came to her children, I think her children became, and she's mentioned this, and she's, you know, she said it to me, and I'll have her talk about it when she comes on the podcast next year. But she used that in many ways as a defensive shield. So her sanity got framed into protecting her child. So when it came to the kids, especially my younger brothers and sisters, she was an absolute fucking lunatic. So if something went down in the neighborhood, no, literally, my sister one time, some neighborhood fucking kid made the fucking mistake of putting his hands on my sister in an inappropriate way.
Oh dear.
My mother went down the other end of the neighborhood to one of the areas where all the kids hung out with a fucking crowbar and literally made the kid piss himself.
Go Magda!
In that if he ever went near her again, that she would just literally, she would take him out of his system. She would beat him to death with it. Now again, she will tell you now in retrospect that was not an appropriate way to handle the situation. That was the only thing that she could do because she had so much anger and rage and because of the other elements. But, this is the pattern of dysfunctionality that affects us all. Sky, I've heard you mention in some elements about your experiences with your mother, Shauna, Ash, I know Steph. We've all danced around a lot of these different elements from different angles. And usually one of the common themes is that disconnect. You know what I mean? I was blessed. I was lucky later in life that I had a good bond with my mother. But as a child, I was disconnected, especially from my father. My father was an abusive, drunken asshole. You know what I mean? And they did not understand what was going on because they were lost in their own fucking insanity. So how the fuck were they supposed... You know what I mean? It's like the blind leading the blind. Now, I don't begrudge them that now. And again, this is not reflective of the situation with Stephanie. It's more of, I guess, an observation on the bullier end of the spectrum that, here's what ends up happening in this whole chaotic mix. That collateral damage is a real thing. And again, Brother DJ here got caught in that process. And because of that element, now he and his family have to deal with those ramifications. And who knows how, again, this is going to carry over onto other children, because again, these patterns tend to build upon themselves. This is where technically you would see an abuser really start to frame themselves out.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's just a simple thing. Be like, oh, they're just kids. They're being kids.
No, that's not okay. That's one of those things of, hey, it's character building for you to have to deal with your own bullies. No, it's not. It's destructive. It's hurtful. It's learning proper coping mechanisms and stuff like that. It's great. I gotta say, I am so freaking in awe of DJ and the strength that this kid had to be able to speak his truth.
And I'm sure it's probably hard for him to see it that way, which again was one of the points why I wanted to do this, was so that way he had a framework that he could go back to, okay?
Yep.
And that he could see and hear all of these elements, and literally, it takes courage. It takes heart.
Big time.
It probably didn't feel that way at the time. It probably felt like you were just bursting open and letting the shit out. But in its own dynamic, it was brave. And it is important to remember and frame that, because I believe that's going to be the path for him to not be bullied going forward. Because ultimately, that's what we have to kind of work towards. He now, I hope and I believe, will be able to take this. And you're right. Steph says we had a family session today, and he was very brave telling us about his darkness that comes to light. He's so lucky to have a supportive tribe around him.
Yeah.
There is a great element there, the darkness, because we all have that darkness, and how we express it is, again, part of our dynamic and how functional or dysfunctional we are. And, Shauna says she legit is drunk and yelling at her for no reason. Yeah, I grew up in that context. We sympathize with that. You know what I mean? And it happens, and then it translates over into other things. It fucks with our self-esteem. All right? It fucks with our happiness. And by default now, it fucks with our ability to interact with other people, because now we are conditioned. Now we expect certain elements of behavior from people because that's what we're used to. That's what we're taught to believe. So you have multiple layers of this insanity all overlapping, underwrapping, spinning around. And some of it, again, starts in these very basic core elements. What's going on in our schools, and then by default, what's going on with children and how parents are. Because again, you can't go freak out on the children, but I tell you what, I would definitely want to have some words with that child's parent.
Oh yeah.
Because that would give you at least a good insight into what you're dealing with and whether or not he's going to have to continue to contend with it. Because that's the unfortunate reality. Everything else you can do, you can damage control and, work with them and stuff like that. But at some point, he has to go back into the world, okay? And, you know, it isn't fair to say that he has to be the one to carry the whole fucking weight
True.
on this, especially if there is an element that, you know, either A, the parents don't give a shit, or this is, you know, something that's a documented pattern. You know, that's one of the things, you know, that I see a lot is that schools are just letting these things just fall through the cracks because they're afraid. They don't want to get sued. They don't want bad publicity. You know what I mean? And it's bullshit. They are basically sacrificing off our children as insurance liabilities.
They're closing off options for help
Right.
and support.
You know, so, you know, if there's a dynamic and there's a problem, we have to deal with it for what it is. Again, it's not about right or wrong. It's about simple elements of protecting against, you know, other worse aspects.
Yeah. And I think it's important, you know, it makes you want to just, you know, like Shauna was saying, it makes you just want to leave this world. But that's why it's so important for those of us who understand these elements to stay here, to be here, to shine a light on this, to provide solutions. I mean, I really not just applaud DJ, but I applaud Stephanie for being that parent that she is. I mean, we know she's an amazing mama bear, but being the parent she is to make sure that her kids, above all else, are
it's a huge listen as
and
one
cared
parent
for.
to another. It's a huge shit sandwich. I give you credit for not just losing your fucking mind on this. I mean, really, props, because it is
Stephanie,
not
you're an amazing, strong
easy.
person.
I know for me that is one of my biggest, deepest triggers. Is in reflection, even still, to my son, and I get it. It's hard. Listen, Angela says today she ended her relationship with her psychologically abusive mother. She's in her mid-50s, and I am done enabling any person's dysfunctional behavior. Amen to you, sister. Seriously, and congratulations. And listen, Shauna, for whatever this is worth, it's a process. I know sometimes it feels fucked up. I understand that you feel like you asked for help and you're not getting it. All those feelings are real and they're painful, but you are not alone.
No.
Aspects change in time. It's never the process that we wanted, and that's the shitty part of it. But in the simple analogy, especially in the context of strength in numbers, you will build upon relationships and connections. Over time, you will learn, you will adapt, and it will change.
And there are local community supports. I told you earlier about the 211, to find local supports in your area, local support groups, people who can be there to help, to talk about, to discuss, so that, you know, it's not just the online thing. This is wonderful. This is great. It's a beautiful context for all of us. But, you know, sometimes we need some people with skin on next to us that we can reach over and get a hug from.
And I like what Sky said, a.k.a. The Flash. And it is really cool, all joking aside. It's all of our job to heal who and what we can, where we can. Does that mean that we, you know, we have to go, you know, to such degrees that we lose ourselves? No. But in the same instance, the elements that we can, especially when we know that it relates, you know, and that was the framework when I played the track earlier, just like you know, we all share these elements. We've all been through it to different degrees.
Yeah.
We've all hurt. We've all felt that kind of, you know, fucked up, desperate element where, you know, we want to lash out and hurt others, or we want to hurt ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's you know, that's just all he experienced. And he just unfortunately wasn't in a position to be able to process it for what it is at that type of age. You know, no child, you know, should have to carry that.
No.
So, you know, again, if nothing else, we have to learn to change to the best we can these dynamics, you know. And you know, Steph, I really do. I hope that you can make at least some aspect of a mark on that. You know, I think it's a good teaching element, and I would definitely hold the school to the fire on it, that if nothing else, use it to bring up the awareness, because it's going to do two things. One, it's going to keep them on their toes, and two, I think it could very easily give him a better framework to come back under. Sometimes, again, the element that you have to shift, you have to change the air, the element, but also, too, it is the framework of perception. You know what I mean? So, and Shannon says, keep in mind, most states have local control. If there isn't much support at the school level, head on to a district level, like the school board rep. And she says she found out when she found out her school was falling short with bullying, many other parents joined her. Yeah, strength in numbers. There's a great statement there. The child in the picture is a friend of ours. His name is DJ. He is Stephanie's son. And she is a friend of ours, and she's actually on the live with us tonight.
So we are.
So yes, he's my buddy. He and
forward.
I have interacted a little bit back and forth on stuff through my music and stuff. And as a parent, one of the things for me, I always believed, and will continue to believe, that children have a pure element of magic, and it's unfortunately because adults don't support it, don't reinforce it, that we lose it as adults. And it really is a tragedy, because we spend the rest of our lives trying to recapture it and finding our higher selves and learning to be better, more spiritually grounded, again, whatever framework. But it really is, our magic is ripped away from us as children, and then we spend the rest of our fucking lives trying to find it to be happy.
And then you have mothers like Stephanie who are making sure that magic stays magical for them.
Which I think is a great example. And also, too, and again, that's a great thing, because we should focus more on, those elements. So I am going to switch back to, and yes, there they are. I snatched that. So
Mama
I'm sure
Bear.
she's going to be pissed off at me, because she's probably got other pictures she want me to use. So you can be pissed off at me and send me whatever pictures you want me to use next time. But yes, I like it because there's a natural dynamic between,
bond here.
As a parent, there's certain elements that you can see reflective in other parents and their children. Yes, I knew it. See, that's I called it. I knew that was going to play out. Hey, listen, you're beautiful already, hon, so you got nothing to worry about.
Now that real beauty comes through. Hey, Eleanor.
Yes, welcome. And again, it is an internal dynamic. You know what I mean? And I hate to say this, and this is no disrespect to anybody else. It's very difficult for people to understand who don't have children. Now, there are a lot of people who don't have children who do bond with children and love children and work and help and interact with children. So I don't want this to be a blanket statement. But there is a dynamic between parent and child that is very unique. Okay? And it's incredibly powerful. And for some of us, it is the defining element, and has been for many, many, many years of our life. This is why we do the things we do. This is what we are.
Yep.
It drives us. It reflects us in many ways.
It's a beautiful thing.
And, as I said earlier, when it cuts close to home, it changes the dynamic. When Shiya first told me, I was angry. I was angry. I wasn't angry at DJ. I was angry that somebody pushed him to such a degree that this is where he ended up.
You were in the middle of one of your favorite shows, and you just
I literally stopped the show and
just
she and I engaged, and Steph knows, because we engaged in conversation, the three of us back and forth and stuff, in what I felt compelled to do, and some other things that I'm going to continue to do in the new year, not only through the podcast and some of the other elements we have, but through some of the charity organizations and musicians and people that I know. Because again, I don't think there's a whole lot we can do besides, shout it from the rooftops. We need to talk about it. We need to vocalize it. We need to call it out for what it is. So I would rather do something than nothing. I will try, again, as Steph says, I'm not trying to scapegoat. I'm not trying to dish out blame, because there are two dynamics that, play into this. Obviously, the victim, in this case DJ, but obviously the person, the abuser, and I hate to use that word, but the bullier.
The one who has been taught.
But you know
but that is
what's
abuse.
put he what's
Bullying
put
is
he or she
abuse.
into that framework?
Yeah.
Are they themselves being abused, and therefore, you
So
see where
they're
I'm
carrying
going?
forward the cycle.
Because that's one possible framework. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's the case, but it could be.
It is a possibility.
Somebody should probably take a look and say, okay, hey, what's going on? Is there a pattern?
And
If there's a pattern, there might be a little bit of an element now where you can get some better details about, okay, well, you know, but if we don't look, I mean, it's like the proverbial ostrich with its head in its sand,
Yeah, another
surrounded by fucking hyenas. It's not going to end well.
Nope.
It's just not. So we can't be. We're not that stupid. I know Steph's not that stupid. I'm not that fucking stupid. Shiya is surely not that fucking stupid. And I don't get the impression that any of you out there are anywhere near that fucking stupid.
Nope.
So why should we tolerate it? Why do we let stupid people set the tempo?
Because we're told that that's what we should accept.
Well,
And it's about time we say no. We're not going to take it. We're not going to accept this.
I'm feeling like kind of a Planet of the Apes moment. Get your damn dirty paws off of me.
Yeah, get your paws off me, you damn dirty ape. But yeah, no, there's definitely, you know, there's a reason that bulliers become bullies, but it doesn't excuse their toxic behavior. Is never an excuse, or
No, but within children,
you know,
we have to take a
we have
look
to
at the
go down and
dynamic.
start looking at the root, and,
All right.
and that's the thing.
There does
look
come a
at the
point,
root.
I agree, once a child is really starting to frame into adult. It's not that I don't have compassion,
Mm-hmm.
but again, there is a big difference between, you know, a 10, 11-year-old child
Yeah,
and a
if we-
19, 20, 22-year-old child. Because I don't think a 19, 20, 22-year-old would feel themselves a child, A, and would want to be referred to as a child. But that's just my perspective as somebody who's a little bit older.
Yeah. But I mean, the honest truth is, when you're dealing with something at those ages, when it's younger, you have a golden opportunity to get to the root of a problem and fix it for not just the abused, but the abuser also.
Absolutely.
At that golden age of, like, where they're impressionable. So even DJ's abuser, who is a potentially abusee as well, there's a reason.
Ash
So-
hits on another thing.
Yes.
If we can create a better framework, not unlike what we try and do with strength in numbers, where they could, you know, that's a great idea. I'm going to take a break real quick. I'm going to play another track tonight that is an unreleased in kind of first stages production. It also speaks to some of these elements. It's a track called The View from Below. And myself and my son, the monkey, began writing this song as kind of a reflection, again, about the perceptual elements between people who live on one side of the fence versus people who live on another side of the fence. So I'll just leave it to you guys to enjoy for a few minutes, and we'll be back. So enjoy The View from Below. So yeah, that was again a little bit of first run track elements of some of the new stuff in production. That was something that my son and we sat down a couple of weeks ago, and over the years he and I have kind of built this dynamic, him being an empath as well too, where we can read off of each other, and we can read the dynamics of emotion, energy. And simply put, if he's in a shitty mood, it tends, and listen, this is probably a common element for most people, but this is really more, again, very much for fucking empaths. Those energies carry over. So we can tap into them between each other. And he had this concept, and, he wanted to, express this element that he sees from his generation of this disconnect. Almost like this, and to use the analogy that was coming up, is the world of Arcane, between the lower and the upper, what I mean, the one side of the fence versus the upper side of the fence,
the have and the have-nots,
what I mean, the greasers and the soaks.
Yep.
For those of you familiar with the old Outsider's tale. But it is a common dynamic, and it is a repeating framework, unfortunately, through time and through cultures and stuff. The disconnect that happens and the perceptual elements that go with that, how people view the other side of the fence. They talk about, the grass is always great on the other side of the, but you never know, that grass might be green because it's growing on top of a septic tank.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's a little stinky over there.
Perception is only part of the equation.
Yep.
But as I put this graphic back up, certain things, are definitive. Numbers do not lie. Okay? 43% fear harassment in the bathroom at school.
I can believe
77% of students are bullied mentally, verbally, and physically, and cyberbullying is not even factored into that yet. 160,000 students miss school each day for fear of being bullied. 280,000 students are physically attacked in secondary schools each month. These are fucking insane numbers. And again, even if they're skewed one way or the other, even by a point or two or 3 or 4, they're still fucking insane.
That's too high.
Numbers.
Way too high.
Okay? We have to do a better job. Now, granted, this is not the blame. I'm going to be saying this all night. I'm not trying to blame anybody. But I am going to say that where we can, we need to. Now, I saw a couple things that were mentioned earlier, and I want to make a point to reference them because they're important, and yes. I believe wholeheartedly in the positive. First one, Shannon Turner says, I led a big fight in Pendleton County, Kentucky. A teacher's son committed suicide at the age of 12 over bullying. I worked grassroots locally and flipped the board against the superintendent, and his contract was not renewed. Now Pendleton County has a superintendent that helps prepare students for the workforce. Bullying is not acceptable, nor discrimination.
And that's exactly what we need to be doing as parents. I mean, even if you're not a parent, you should care.
Well, because it carries over onto the rest of us.
Yeah.
Angela Velasquez, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. Velasquez. But Angela says she records the parent concerns at her school district. Those children who bully others are usually bullied at home. And I absolutely agree. There is usually, in some form or another, a dynamic that goes back. Because children, again, this is learned behavior. So where are they learning it from?
Yep.
Chances are they're learning it from someplace outside the school. If they're the bully in this case, again, it's not rocket science to try and at least connect basic dots.
I used to work for the school district in a school district in Texas, to where I was a sign language interpreter and teacher's assistant. We had an elementary school level child that was fairly abusive, even to the adults. Like, would reach out, kick and thrash and everything like that, wouldn't respond. And so they called the parent in to talk about what the problem was. The parent walks in with a belt around her neck, ready to beat the child for any problems. So the child is simply repeating what the mom does to get her way. The child was repeating to get his way on the teachers and students around him.
Yeah, I mean, again, there are certain frameworks that,
Yep.
you know, they are what they are, and we need to call them out.
Yep.
Now, you know, there are some elements that get into some of the sketchy territories. One of the things I know that came up back in the day when I was dancing around some elements within the school system, within at least New Jersey, where we lived at the time, was the whole framework of teachers' tenure, which basically says within the union context that once a teacher reaches a certain point, you can't get rid of them.
Yeah,
Which
that's
for me
bullshit.
personally, I think is a crock of bullshit.
Mm.
I'm all about protecting teachers' rights. I believe that teachers are not paid what they are deserving, but I also believe that there is a higher standard that teachers should be held to as they are teaching our children. So there are certain elements. If you have proven that you obviously do not have the capacity or the skin, as they say, to be able to work with children and actually give a shit about them, then you have no
Bye-bye.
business being a teacher. And I don't give a fuck how many years you've invested if you are a detriment, if you're a liability, or worse, if you are a danger,
Don't let the door hit
apathetic
you
or
where the door
otherwise.
splits you.
And I think apathy is just as dangerous.
Well, I heard about a teacher here that was in a aftercare program and was dosing them all up with like NyQuil and stuff.
Yeah, listen, you know, again, teachers have a rough time. I'm not trying to throw all teachers under the bus. But we have to look at things realistically for what they are. There should be no blanket fucking immunity
No.
just because somebody wrote it down on a piece of paper or in some fucking bylaws. Again, I believe in a system of fairness and justice. Just because somebody says something doesn't make it real. So that doesn't mean that we throw people under the bus just because somebody says, oh, well, you know, blah, 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 blah. No. But if we have documentation, if we have established context or lack thereof of action or response or viable, you know, elements that you can say at least a person is making an honest element or an honest effort. So, yeah, you know, we have to find a better balance. Because, listen, I think we can all agree. Not every teacher out there should be a teacher. I've encountered teachers as a child. I've encountered teachers as a parent that, again, I wouldn't trust to make a fucking peanut butter sandwich. And my son knew it. And I had to go down to the school and defend him. And I basically had to say to the principal, well, I'm sorry that my son is more intelligent than your teacher. You know what they did? They got him out of that fucking class and they put him in another one.
Yep.
Because that was the simple truth. In his junior year of high school, my son was smarter than his teacher.
Yep.
So what the fuck are we supposed to do as parents? And Steph, I'm with you. I feel the same way about cops. I have friends and family that have been involved in law enforcement for years. There are good people in law enforcement.
But
they're
the bad
assholes,
apples
too.
that really stick out and really, you know, ruin it for everybody else, really.
And Barbara says her daughter was bullied and got jumped in 7th grade by 5 students. Yeah, that's insanity. That's assault.
It is.
You know what I mean?
But
you know, again, and that's the type of stuff that leads to worse elements when it is accepted and becomes part of a conditioning, especially, and I will say this as a man, seeing these elements as a younger man growing up, it teaches men that it's okay.
Well, one teacher recorded it on their phone. Oh, man, that's instant fire right there. But I'll tell you, there needs to be, and I think that you're coming in, and I'm going to say the one word I think that really...
Yeah,
brings
Barbara,
this
I would have lost my fucking mind.
Yep. But the one word that we need, more than anything else in the school system across the board, accountability. There needs to be accountability.
Yes, there does. But there needs to be accountability within some frameworks also, too. You know, again, Sky and Sean have been talking, you know, back and forth a little bit in regards, you know, shitty parents need to be called out. It's not fair that children have to suffer because their parents are fucking assholes. I'm sorry. And again, I'm not pointing the finger at anybody per se, but if the scumbag fits, okay, listen, why should we sit back? Now, again, I'm not talking about that every time there's a whiff in the air that everybody has the right to jump into everybody else's business. That's not what I'm saying. But again, if there are obvious patterns, if somebody is going through this type of stuff, why should they? I'll use Ash's analogy. She had to fight a guy who was beating up a hyperventilating girl. No one else was doing anything, and it was next to a full classroom. So yeah, what's the option? You're supposed to fucking stand back and watch? I almost went to jail because I had got into a fight with a guy that was beating up on a woman, and I beat him up so badly that they thought that I was the villain.
That's insane.
Yeah, well, Barbara says they said they recorded it for evidence. Can you believe that? Yeah, I know. It's fucking insanity. But these are the things that we're dealing with. These are the elements that are now carrying over. And as we said earlier, our friend DJ was bullied to a degree that he was at that dark place where he wanted to hurt himself or somebody else. And again, I want to emphasize the positive, that he didn't hurt himself, he didn't hurt anybody else.
No, he stood up and was strong.
Let people know around him that he was in trouble. And I credit that, back again to Steph in her parenting, that he at least had the semblance of that knowledge, of that experience, that learning from her, that he was able to vocalize it versus it swallowing him.
It speaks very well to Steph as a parent.
Yeah, I love that. Ash is like dented a few lockers with his head. No one ever suspects the shy fat girl to snap. Listen, my mother would love you because she's a 5'2", 90-pound soaking wet Sicilian
badass,
hippie from Brooklyn, that at that point in time when we were kids, she was so jaded on the whole peace and love thing that I think she had like 10 years of repressed anger and just rage, that every time somebody looked at her cross-eyed, you know what I mean, she was crazy, you know what I mean? But let me tell you, it protected my sisters and my younger brothers. Now, granted, when they got a little bit older, they were like, yeah, no, fuck you, we don't care, we're men. And that's how it goes, but that's a story for another day. But yes, these are bad numbers, and again, to emphasize back to the positive, my little brother DJ,
look at that kid. You can't just help but love that kid.
You are not alone. We are just like you. You are just like us.
Yep.
We've all danced through this to some degree or another. Something has pushed us to a point of feeling that disconnect, that loneliness, that hurt, that rage, that anger. Okay?
That frustration.
Okay? Doesn't mean you're wrong, okay? And you did the right thing. You talked about it.
Go,
okay?
DJ.
That is more than most adults can do. Okay? Give yourself credit. You did a better job than most adults can do in this case. I know, again, that it doesn't probably feel that way right now, and whenever point in time you get to come back and you get to watch this, I truly do believe you will be in a better place, because your mother loves you, okay? The people around you love you. I love you. Shiya loves you. Everybody here loves you. We're in this together, okay? Strength in numbers. It's not just a bunch of words. It's a real fucking deal. To whatever degree that we can do to help each other, we do it within the scope that we can do it. Does that mean we have magic wands and can just do magical shit? Sometimes.
I mean,
sometimes. I got a magical wand.
I got a magic wand too.
Yeah. So sometimes we can make magic happen.
10 points to Gryffindor.
10 points to Gryffindor.
I'm Hufflepuff, though.
So yes, talk about it when you see it. Again, be involved. Shannon, I got to tell you, I really do appreciate your input. And she also says there are serious issues kids have faced due to the opiate pandemic in Kentucky. We need, exactly as you said, we need more guidance counselors, peer support groups, social workers, COVID has definitely created a horrible dynamic within all of those elements, within addiction, depression. These are all contributing variables that just make it even harder. And listen, I've been hearing a lot. There's a case to be made to some degrees when and where we can. We have to step up.
Mm-hmm.
We have to step up. Shit will not change itself on its own.
No.
Okay, that doesn't mean that you have to change everything, but in the little things, when and where we can, and if that means getting involved in your school board, or if you're in the mall and you see some chaos coming down, be the adult. Try. At least make an effort. That doesn't mean that you jump into the middle of a gang shooting. All right, I'm not talking about being.
No, but things like what Shannon
use
is
common
doing.
sense.
Shannon is a fucking hero in my book. She's out there on the front lines dealing with the school system.
But let me tell you something. Children have some consistent elements. If you can engage and if you can distract them outside of the box of whatever fucking insanity is going on, you've got a working chance.
Mm-hmm.
At least don't treat them like they're little scumbags. Okay? I understand. I get it. It's hard. Sometimes we don't understand it. We don't agree with it. We don't like it. But as has been mentioned many times, they are victims too. They are products of whatever has driven them.
Yep.
To act the way they are. This is all cause and effect.
So we definitely have to, be accepting of one another and get to the root of the issue and then have accountability with one another. But like I said,
and just
Shannon's
try and help.
A fucking hero.
And Jamie shares her daughter was bullied for about a week. She called the mom, and as soon as she heard her daughter was bullying, she put her foot down on her and came the next day. She apologized, and now they stay apart. Hey, listen, sometimes it's just that simple element. Have a conversation. That's a great example too.
Yep.
It doesn't mean we have to lose our fucking minds. It's hard not to. Listen, I'm the first one to admit, somebody fucks with my kid, I'm a different guy. I'm not a friendly wolf.
Growling.
But my son is just the same way. He's even worse. And when he sees somebody fuck with me, it's harder to control him. So we share that beautiful dynamic. And I'm the same way about Shiya. I got annoyed at Shiya today when she's out because she just starts talking to random people. I'm like, shut the fuck up. They could have disease.
Somebody.
They could be crazy. I don't know who the fuck they are. I don't want to share my life.
I told her how pretty her hair color is.
I know. I'm being obnoxious.
I know.
But listen, it's tough. We all struggle with it. None of us are perfect. I love what the monkey shared. That dance for perfection is illusion. It's a bullshit.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have those moments. We're gonna have our faults. But again, to the degree that we can support each other. And again, brother, DJ, you are loved, my friend. You hang in there,
so
okay?
Strong.
This is not a reflection of you. There's going to be my final little piece. I'm sorry that it's coming at the end, but I'm going to tell you this when I can tell you directly as well, too. This is not a reflection of you. What you went through does not reflect who you are. It is symptomatic. It's the same analogy when you eat some bad tacos and you get diarrhea. You're not the diarrhea. The diarrhea is a side effect, okay? It's a cause and effect. It does not reflect who you are. So you went through this. This is what happened. You come out the other end. You're stronger, okay? Use any number of superhero analogies, okay? You went through your first little thing and you got knocked around a little bit. You'll get stronger. You'll get better. You will be able to now also to understand this. And hopefully within time, you will be a source of strength for others, because that's ultimately the goal, is that strength in numbers, in what we do to protect and take care of each other within our smaller circles, you and your mother and your family, and in our bigger circles with all of us and Shauna and myself and Shannon and Ash and Sky and everybody else that comes through on any given day of every given week. Mm-hmm. It's all part of that magical journey, and there's a lot to be had from it.
We're proud of you, DJ.
Yeah.
When it comes down to it,
and listen, you don't have to worry about Krampus. I'm still debating sending Krampus to this other kid. I'm holding back because part of me kind of, steps at it,
Maybe he's
maybe
hurting
this kid's
too.
a victim, maybe he's not, but there's a part of me that wants to send Krampus.
Krampus gets all the bad little
Listen,
children
I mean,
and
think
gives
about
them
this.
switches.
I hate to say this. If we really had a framework of Krampus, if the naughty kids actually had to contend with something like that, we might see a change in dynamic.
Maybe.
Accountability,
And they still, overseas, they'll have parades of Krampus.
Now, I know that sounds slightly terrifying,
That's okay.
but is it any less terrifying than some of the religious dogma? I mean, listen, again,
You're going
when
to
I was
hell.
6 years old, I was being conditioned, for hell and demons. So,
Demons?
Krampus is kind of, that's kind
Krampus
of,
to the parents.
it's
They're-
milk toast in comparison.
Right?
He's not like the angel of death. He's just coming for the bad kids. But
you
yeah,
gotta give
listen,
them some switches
again,
and then turn them loose.
and again, part of it was my, I deflect with humor. So I didn't want to come into this just completely all bent out of shape, like, because it hurts. I feel for the kid. I care about him. I love him. And as a parent, as a father, and as a human, and as an empath, we feel it.
Yep.
I feel it when Sky and Shauna, talk about some of the things they go through, and no offense, as much as I would love to dive into everybody's thing, some of it's painful. I can feel that pain. I don't want to emphasize sometimes on the pain. I want to emphasize on the positive. So I'll frame it and be like, hey, you're not alone.
Yeah.
Okay? We get it. We've been through this. You're not wrong. You're not crazy. If anything, it's the people around you that are fucked up. You know what I mean? And when you're dealing with these things, when we're all having to deal with these elements in life and stuff like that, it's hard to remember because we're conditioned. Because a lot of the times, most of the people that will be dancing around us have ulterior motives or fucked up or have been traumatized or conditioned. So it becomes this really big shit show juggling dance, which is not pretty and fun sometimes. It's tough. We hit low points. We go through
There's never a point where
moments
everything's
where
perfect.
it's just like, fuck.
But then
Fuck you,
have,
fuck him, fuck this.
But then you have your pack. You have your people, your core people that are around you that you can look at and just know that
We try and
no
reinforce
matter
it.
what the shit show is that you've been through, that you are among family. Even if they're not your blood.
Oh, Angela, how could you have guessed? Yes, I was raised Roman, and in a deep, hard old world Roman Catholic. The context. On my father's side, my grandfather literally built his place, and they built their own rectory, and they had their own priest that they brought in from Italy that lived on the property, so that way at any given moment and point in time, if absolution must be had, the priest was there. So yeah, it was a constant, kind of, like Fridays. Like I remember the first time I ate meat on a Friday. I probably struggled for at least 2 or 3 weeks worth of fucking nightmares and anxiety.
Wow.
You know what I mean? Because my cousin, she made fun of me because she didn't have to go through it the way that I did.
Yeah.
Because of the way the dynamics of the family was.
I grew up in the whole born
And
again
she
Baptist.
did
I
it.
never understood the
She
meat
got
on
me
Friday
with
thing.
it. And then made fun of it and then reinforced the fear. I mean, you're going to go to hell.
Oh my
You
God.
ate the meat, you're going, you know what I mean? It was just like, Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, again, I don't begrudge anybody's belief, their faith. But when you got to frame it with, eternal damnation and demons and all kinds of horrible shit to keep
that's a
people
thing.
within your camp, there's something wrong. I'm sorry.
There's no
And listen,
apologizing for that.
I personally believe, and if I'm going to hell, then I'm going to go hell for the right reasons. As I say, I think Jesus would agree with me. I don't think he thinks that this is how he wanted it. I don't see it. I've looked at the Word. I've read the Word many times over. I don't see him being cool with any of this
And he
shit
called all the
supposedly in his fucking name.
Yeah, he called all the religious people whited sepulchres, which basically meant that they were whitewashed tombs full of rotten crap inside. May look nice on the outside, still full of rotten crap on the inside.
I think he'd be a lot like the, to some degrees, not completely, but some degrees, he'd be like the South Park Jesus, where he would just come back and just be like, you're all a bunch of fucking assholes. I'm not wasting my time. I died for you once. You didn't get it. Why should I, But that's just me. I'm being sarcastic. I'm not, again, I love the concept. I love the philosophical element of it. But I think that man, in his infinite stupidity, has taken it and, spun it into some really weird shit. Listen, I got excommunicated when my son was born because I refused to indoctrinate him. See, unfortunately for me, I have some other tie-ins, and we'll just, long story short, because this is going to be a framework of something I'll be talking about next year. I am the firstborn son of a firstborn son, which within specific sects within the Roman Catholic Church, specifically the Knights of Malta, is a really big fucking deal, and it is a mandatory, quote-unquote, type of element that is passed on. Yours truly, I broke the chain with my son and pissed. I pissed a lot of people off. Listen, I didn't want my son. Listen, it's not fair. He has the right to make the choice. It's bullshit. You know what I mean? And the price was way too high. I was not selling my son for a piece of paper. For what? It's bullshit. It's all illusion. It's indoctrination. It's manipulation. But that's just me.
Yep.
So anyway, listen, it's been a great night. I appreciate everybody's support again. Thank you for your support for DJ. DJ, know that, again, you are loved. You hang in there, brother. I hope you have a great Christmas, Steph. The rest of you, thank you for sharing this. I know it's been incredibly hard for you guys, and all the more reason it is truly appreciated. And know that, again, to the best degree that we can, we will continue to support you guys. I will continue to make a point of this going forward in different ways. I'm just not 100% sure how that's going to play out, but I'm going to keep with it. So, again, everybody know that you're loved. Enjoy your holidays. You're going to be on tomorrow night. Yeah, Chai's going to be on tomorrow night. We're going to do one final live before the holidays and stuff, do the weekly contest and stuff. But we're going to close out the night with one final kind of premiere track that's not really, out there yet, but people hear it on the background all the time. It's another one that's going to be in this new album. And it's also a hopeful one. It's a track that I started writing called Things I've Seen. So enjoy this little sneak, again, of the first production run of this. And until next time, know that we love you guys. Peace out and happy Yule. Yes, I've heard bad things about the Knights of Malta too, Angela. Yes, and that's how we end the night. You're absolutely right, Angela, and it's a conversation we're going to have. Listen, if I told you everything about the background of my family, listen, we could go on Springer with this shit. My family's got some fucking deep ties into some fucked up shit. Okay? But again, conversation for another time. Here it is. Things I've seen.
Happy
Have a great
guys.
night, everybody.